1 week ago today. Pushing forward with our agenda this morning, is the president a lame duck? A big week for immigration reform. And as the NRA is clinging to its gun, will gun legislation get a second shot? Joining me now is our panel covering progressive issues. We've got Taegan Goddard, creator of Political Wire and author of the political management book, You Won, Now What? We've got Judd Legum, founder and editor-in-chief of Think Progress, and Joan Walsh, editor-at-large of Salon.com and MSNBC political analyst, as well as the author of What's the Matter with White People? Can't get a better title than that. Great to have all of you here. As I said, it's an embarrassment of riches to have the three of you together, so I'm really excited about our panel. Joan, I want to start with you because there's a fresh piece up on Salon by you talking exactly about whether or not we're witnessing the lame duck dynasty right now of President Obama, and you say Obama's real leadership challenge Democrats. Leadership isn't about getting drinks with McConnell or bad sports metaphors. The president must rally progressives. Are progressives that fair weather?
I don't think the progressives are fair weather, Thomas, but I thought last week there was a lot. First of all, he did not help himself with that press conference. Obviously, he sounded kind of tired and maybe a little bit petulant. But the larger issue is he can't work magic with Republicans. He can't change their desire to filibuster him and keep him from having his agenda. But he can work more with progressives. And
the audio just went out.
The FAA, the whole FAA fix was really undermined the whole Democratic strategy on the sequester, it seemed as though.
Judd, we're going to work on that audio for you. I hear you down there, but we'll work on that. Taegan, he's got really more than 250 days, considerably left right now, to really get something done with some pressure before we start to get total midterm concentrated.
Right.
So is it fair to say that the president has lost the steam there? And as we point out, a lot of those times the White House press conferences are more about the reporters' questions than the president's answers.
Well, I think there's a real disconnect here between what Obama's doing and what he needs to do at this point. I think, as Joan indicated in a piece on Salon.com today, which was really great, it's not just that Obama needs to speak to his base a little bit more. He needs to, as Senator Pat Toomey said last week, gun control wasn't going anywhere because Obama supported it, and that's really just a fact. So if he can't get things through a Republican House or a Republican votes in the Senate, he needs to do something else, which is speak positively to the base, speak about what he wants to do, speak about how he's going to rally the troops, and then take the issue right to the midterm elections. As he spoke at Ohio State University this last weekend, he talked about the importance of people getting engaged in the political process. He spoke about people voting, and I think that's what Obama needs to do right now if he cannot move the Republican Congress.
Certainly they have a lot more to pivot off of after this weekend with the NRA. And Judd, I understand you're back. It was Taegan and Joan who said that we should kill your audio as a practical joke.
Thanks,
so
guys.
You'll have to take it out on them. But I want to play just from the NRA meeting over the weekend in Texas, just some of the highlights that the Democrats might be pivoting off of this week. Take a look.
We will never surrender our guns, never.
We must never confuse winning a battle with winning the war.
President Obama demanded that his followers extract revenge. I can't remember a president ever publicly using that word against fellow Americans.
This president flying in grieving parents on Air Force One, making them backdrops in his perpetual campaign-style press events.
Judd, is this something, after looking at just that montage put together there, some of the highlights from the NRA, is that something that progressives can pivot off of and utilize to reinvigorate the background check conversation and the gun reform conversation that still needs to continue in this country?
Well, I think so, and I think what's been interesting when we had the background check vote that failed is that the issue hasn't gone away, and now we're hearing Biden and others talk about another vote coming up soon. And I think it's a really interesting test of just how powerful is lobbying. Is the NRA so powerful that you can take an issue where 90% plus of Americans believe one thing and push Congress in the other direction? And I think the power of the vote and what we've seen since the vote happened with Senator Ayotte up in New Hampshire, her numbers dropping, other people feeling the political pressure, combined with the background of some of the things we've been hearing at the NRA convention and things that seem definitely out of the mainstream of where Americans are, just what wins out. And I think over the next few weeks, we're going to see.
Meanwhile, I want to show everybody the press coverage, the daily news coverage. Just take a look at this in and of itself. I mean, the image of a dad and his young child speaks for itself with the headline, "Daddy, is this the gun that killed all those children?" And Judd, I know at Think Progress, you have an instructor that's giving tips to families about where to put guns in their homes with kids. I want to play that for everybody. Take a listen.
If that alarm goes off and the glass breaks and the dog starts barking, what's the instinct that most people are going to have in regard to, am I going to run across the house to get the gun, or am I going to run over here to help the screaming kid? And if I'm going to go to the kid anyway, and I have an extra gun and an extra safe, why not put it in their closet?
Why not put it in the closet? So, Joan, you are shaking your head. You can't believe that we would discuss the good idea of planting a gun hidden in your child's room.
My daughter's grown now. If only I'd thought of that when she was younger, Thomas. I can't believe. I feel like a terrible mother.
Well, now you've got empty nest syndrome, and you can put that in the sewing room, you know?
In the dog's room.
Yeah, in the dog's room.
No, I mean, you know, we look at these clips, and it's like these people are a cult. They are a fringe cult. And what has happened over the last 10 or 15 years is that Democrats got soft on these issues. They decided that they were going to cede all that territory to the NRA, and they decided that gun control was too risky and too iffy and too dangerous for them. And now they're getting back in the game. And so, you know, the defeat, let's remember, it was defeated by 54, right, having 54 votes of support. The defeat was, again, a wake-up call how hard this is going to be and how tough this side has to be. And I'm glad to hear them saying they're going to bring the bill back. They've just got to keep doing it.
Meanwhile, if we don't get ahead of where we stand as a country with background checks and the type of weapons that we allow on the street, we're not going to need to go out to the local store to buy one. We can print it in our home office. Because I want to show this to everybody. The New York Post showing the printer and guns. Basically, you can print your own plastic gun at home. This is just amazing, and they've tested this plastic gun in the States now. It works, it fires. Judd, when we look at this, is it just amazing to think that while we're having this background check battle over what is logical for someone to have a gun, now we're going to have to start thinking about who can buy printers in this country that can make that type of weapon?
Yeah, I think 3D printing technology, you're just starting to hear about it, but it really is going to revolutionize not only guns, but all manufacturing. And I think there's a negative side of it, which is you might have people making weapons, but there's also a lot of positive sides about it where we won't have to necessarily outsource so much of our manufacturing. But I do think that technology adapts and changes, and it adds a really complex wrinkle to the entire debate. But right now, you can't produce an automatic weapon with a 3D printer yet.
No, you can't yet. But do you think this reinvigorates the conversation that we need to logically be having, and potentially a second vote coming up?
You know, I think it does, Thomas. And if you look at the NRA convention this last weekend, not a single Democrat spoke at that convention. And Democrats have an ability right now to make NRA, make the R stand for Republican and not for rifle anymore. And if they can link Republicans to the NRA and to some of this extreme rhetoric that you hear out of the convention and that you hear quoted, the Democrats might be able to get this thing through.
All right, I want to say thanks to our agenda panel for today, Joan Walsh, Taegan Goddard, Judd Legum. Again, Judd, it was all these guys here that messed with your audio, not us, okay? So thank you again. You're going to be able to find the link to this segment after the show on my website page at tv.msnbc.com. But again, thanks to all of you. Great to see you. Our producer's pick comes to us